welcome back to the class, everyone. As of recently, we've talked about 5 new factions that CG could bring to the game, as well as 5 lifter characters that could come in to assist the current characters we have. Today, I want to look at 5 possible reworks that CG should be doing, because sometimes a lifter just isn't enough. So in the last couple of months, reworks have been really few and far between. The last one that I can really even remember was Mace, and that was a pretty nice overhaul. That was great. But there are several other characters that need the same treatment where their factions themselves are very functional. Looking back to the Mace example of Galactic Republic and Jedi, we already had several of those teams that were working quite well. But Mace, as a great character within the lore, was just pretty much useless on all accounts, and I would like to see several other characters get the same treatment he did, whether it's just with little fixes here and there to the kit, or if it's just a whole rehauling of what they're able to do. So we'll talk about the 5 characters, and then as always, you guys can tell us in the chat a character that you would like to see rework so that they could not necessarily make the team function better, but they themselves could function better. So first up is going to be Cad Bane. Cad Bane isn't totally useless. He has 2 popular uses, one being his ship in the Executor fleet, and the second one being if you want to get max rewards in crate. Very few people are able to do that just because it's kind of a relic 8 requirement, which is very steep. That being said, as far as normal ground battles go in PvE or PvP, he's quite useless. His kit is very outdated. He has super old stats, so he's very slow. He does not deal very good damage. He's not very tanky. He's labeled as a support for some reason because I guess he can kind of control things. The stun glove ability is actually okay, or at least it was when he first was released. He's also the only bounty hunter in the entire game without a Zeta, which is weird within itself. But this is kind of just where he's sitting right now, and he can't do a whole lot. What I would love to see from him, if they could give him a dueling mechanic, because both in Book of Boba Fett as well as Bad Batch and even in Clone Wars, we saw him when he was one-on-one, he was able to take down some really high opponents, including even Jedi. And that ability just doesn't seem to be reflected at all in the game. I would like to see something along the lines of just something overpowered that reminds us of what he is in the lore, something like Vader, what was Merciless Massacre, where it's very clear what they were trying to emulate from the hallway scene from Rogue One. So I don't know if they could just add in a whole new ability or put a Zeta on one of the existing ones, or maybe even an Omicron for GAC that would just super duper buff him if there's any circumstance where it comes down to just him and one other character, whether that was the way the battle was entered, or if it just comes down to the 2 of them and they get into this kind of dueling thing where he gets like 500 plus speed, 50 plus evasion, a bunch of immunities like immune to stun, immune to ability block, immune to fear, and just lets him actually become a real terror. That it would be really fun to see little old Cad Bane start to take out a solo JMK because your first counter didn't quite work out. There are probably other things they could do that would be a little bit more balanced, but that's kind of where I would like to see him. If he could have just that one use that kind of emulates what he is doing in the shows, I would love it. I like Cad Bane. He's a very powerful bounty hunter. He really did fill the gap between Jango Fett's death and Boba Fett's rising. I think it's not really represented at all in game. Next up is going to be Visas Marr. This one really doesn't need to be that big of an overhaul. I'm just a little bit upset that it feels like they brought Starkiller into the game kind of as a Visas lifter. He has a bunch of callouts during his kit. Light side unaligned force users one, and then the healer's the other one. But she just doesn't seem very good. Like most of the things that Starkiller can do, 95% of the things Starkiller can do, he can do without Visas. And she adds at the team and makes it just a little bit better, but there's still like some really oddities in her kit where it does not need to be this niche. Just like make it a little bit better so that there's a better argument for using her. Like this ability right here. While Visas Marr has no debuffs, okay, she has 100% counter chance and a 60% chance to assist when another ally attacks Sith enemies once per turn. This is just overly conditional. She has to have no debuffs. That's already difficult. And it's a 60% chance to assist when another ally attacks one specific faction. I get what they were trying to go for when she came out. She was supposed to be an anti-heroic Sith raid, but there's so many problems with this. Number one of the heaviest debuff factions in the entire game is Sith, so it's probably never going to really hit that. And then 60% chance to assist. This is so wildly outdated. Almost every modern team right now has one dedicated character that's just gonna assist every single time for really no reason other than the fact that it's going to. And she gets these 2 huge limiters. I would just love to see all the conditions go away. It doesn't matter if she has debuffs, and it doesn't matter if it's a Sith and she has 100%. Just like let her attack out of turn and cleanse everyone all the time and be super annoying and add another layer of complexity to the Starkiller team, or really whatever team they want to put her in. But that's really my big complaint on her. Just they made it so wildly niche when it, at least in the current game, it just doesn't have to be. If they want to do something else more fun and creative, that would be cool too. But maybe something to keep the whole anti-Sith thing, as Sith are still a very relevant faction in the game. Next up is going to be Kit Fisto. This is going to be very different from the Visas Marr critique. Kit Fisto needs a whole overhaul. Every single ability needs to be changed. Maybe except the leadership. I'm sure we can put him in the Qui-Gon team or JMK team and he'll be fine given his tags here. But gosh, these are just garbage. Has 35% counter chance and 20% offense. This wouldn't even be the level 1 of a modern kit now. It's so wildly behind. And even if, I would be very excited if we got Jedi Dooku with the Jedi Council tag and he was somehow perfectly made so that Kit Fisto could have a home. That would be great, but I would still be really sad that this is all he does, is he gives potency up. I guess they could say Jedi Dooku, his leadership is whenever everyone has potency up, they also have 100% offense or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe potency up is now undispellable or something. But make him good. Like, do something with these abilities that shows what he would actually do in, like, the Clone Wars TV series or something to that extent, because right now is vastly underwhelming. And not only was he a Jedi Council member, he was one of the better ones. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. And he's also like a big name character. He's not just some rando. They're like, oh, he was on the Jedi Council too. He's Kit Fisto, for crying out loud. Next up is going to be HK, and HK's kit isn't terrible. The issue with him is CG has penciled him into like 2 or 3 different homes and then immediately kicked him out. Way back in the day, for those of you who remember, he was a droid leader, but they nerfed his turn meter thing for funsies, I guess. And that was not great, so he wasn't a really great droid leader at that point. We now, since then, have 3 really good droid leaders, Afra, Grievous, as well as Sortie, that kind of all fill those homes, so that's fine. But then he got penciled into the Darth Revan team, which was really cool because he got all these juicy bonuses that helped him beat a very specific meta, which was Jedi Knight Revan at the time. Like, the whole thing made sense. He had another home. And then Malgus came in and said, if you're not Sith, I don't want you, because you start to lose all these huge bonuses on the Malgus team if it's just Sith and not Sith Empire, or without having the Sith tag. And since the droid doesn't really get that. And then he kind of had a place with Afra or Sortie, but I mean, you can put him there, but he's a filler. He's not really doing or adding anything. He doesn't change any of the counters. Afra does have a few problems where she needs some help right now. She could use a cleanse, she could use a dispel, she could use a tank. HK doesn't do any of that. He adds nothing of real value to that team. The team does not need damage. BT1 has that covered. They don't really need control or anything like that. They have plenty of potency, so they don't really even need his tenacity down, which at one point would have been very helpful. So he's just homeless. I don't know what I want them to do with him. I would not be upset if they just plastered the Sith tag on him and we could just start grafting him into like Malgus or Darth Revan teams or something like that. But right now, as it stands, he's just not good because he doesn't have the Sith tag and he's just not ideal in the droid teams either. I guess if they want to change some of this so that, let's say this is now also a dispel if he's under a droid lead or something like that, or he has a cleanse somewhere. I don't really think I want him tanking, but give him some utility where he's useful with Afra, because right now he's just homeless, and a lot of that is a combination of his abilities as well as his tags, which could probably be easily fixed. And the last one, I don't really know if I want this. I just think it's very odd that we don't have this in game right now. So when the new crate raid came out, we got Bouchlet. Actually, Bouchlet came out before the crate raid did. And she had an Omicron for raids, and it's been very helpful in the Jabba team. Quite frankly, you don't need it to be able to get max scores with Jabba, but it makes it so much easier. There's no headache to it. You can have different styles of modding. You can have plenty of different comps, and that Omicron just makes all of it so much easier. I still find it very odd that a lot of these other characters that either for lore reasons or because they're just not very relevant elsewhere have not gotten a raid Omicron. Like Chief Nebert or Tusken Shaman, I feel like CG could have easily gotten away with raid Omicrons on both of them. Sure, not everyone will apply them, but Jawas right now aren't even capable of the max box, and they're kind of relevant to the raid, as well as Tuskens. They can do max box already without the Omicron, but if there could just be an easy button so you don't have to like the perfect turn order, speed, or strategy, I think that's a missed opportunity on CG's part as in a way to drain Omicrons from people who want to get really high scores in the raid, with also maintaining a little bit of their quality of life. So those are going to be our suggestions for reworks. Let me know in the comments what fan favorite you have out there that would be really nice. Until the next time, stay awesome.